If you got 98 on a math test, my dad would be mad that, oh, how did you fail this test? Right? That was the sort of standards at home.
Yeah.
And I think I got a 0 on a math test in 6th grade.
Were you one of those who had IIT as the big goal, right?
Not at all. I didn't even know about IITs.
For people who are at a crossroad, should I give up my stable job and start up, or should I start up and take that risk? What advice would you give them?
When you're thinking of a very big decision, I always ask people, what will you regret more? Trying something new or not having tried it? We were just 4.5 million in revenue in 2010. From there, we are 100 times the size in the next 15 years. But we were all had equal stakes and all put together something like 10 lakhs of capital to start the business.
Wow. And what is it worth today?
I think 15,000 crores, 16,000 crores, yeah.
And what are some of the companies that you work with?
The biggest companies in the world. So if you think of what is called the Mag 7, the Magnificent 7 companies, these are the biggest tech companies in the world. We serve 5 of the 7 of them.
Wow. What is the future of AI? Imagine growing up in a small village in Assam, to then in the 6th grade getting a big 0 on his math exam, to then getting into IIT Delhi, getting a high-paying corporate job after, leaving that job to start up with 6 co-founders with a mere investment of 10 to 12 lakhs, to today being a publicly listed company worth 15,500 crores. That's the story of the CEO and co-founder of Fractal, Srikanth. And we're here to chat with him about all things AI and what does it truly take to scale and build a unicorn. Hello Srikanth, thank you for having me.
Hi Karishma, wonderful to see you. Welcome.
So nice to meet you. It's a beautiful office,
Thank
beautiful
you.
view.
Thank you.
But obviously we didn't begin here, so I want to go all through your journey.
Sure.
But before we do that, can we have a little bit of a look around?
Of course.
And then we'll
Yeah.
chat as we move.
So we're in Goregaon.
Okay.
And we have this unrestricted view of the RA forest.
Yeah.
And this is particularly beautiful during the monsoon months.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think they say that when you can see further along, your vagus nerve resets and helps you get better. So this really works well to have this view every day.
Yeah.
For most of Fractalites, we made sure that the offices are built in such a way that there's a lot of natural light coming in, and therefore it sort of helps you in also adjusting to various kinds of weather patterns as well as jet lag and things like that. So this is our conference room, or we call it the ideation studio. We call it Singularity because we feel this is where the world is leading up to, a place where machines and humans are equally good and machines start to surpass human beings.
Wow.
And the idea of these kinds of rooms is to first make these non-confrontational because nobody is facing each other. And secondly, it's set up like a puzzle, a little maze.
Yeah.
We solve some very complex problems for our clients and help them make better decisions. So that's why no Fractal conference room is a general rectangular or circular shaped room.
That's interesting.
Yeah. This is our executive dining area. Okay. So we host a number of clients almost every day of the week.
Wow.
So when we set them up, we usually have a lunch or high tea, etc. served here.
Yeah.
So that's why we set this up here.
Got it. But you didn't start here, Srikanth. You started from a very small village in Assam to now you've just rung the IPO bell this year. AI is booming, but you guys were operating in AI far before it became the cool AI trend.
Sure.
I want to get to all those parts, but talk to me a little bit about your childhood. Were you this ambitious? Did you want to make it big? What drove you?
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that.
See, I grew up in a small town called Duliajan. It's an oil township.
Okay.
So back in the 1800s, 1889 to be precise, the first oil well in India was built in a place called Dibrugarh, in a place called Digboy, right next to Duliajan.
Okay.
It was called Digboy because what happened was that there were British people laying the railway tracks in the northeast of India, and as they were using elephants to take the wood and bring it to the etc. And they realized that these elephants the feet were wet and with some oily substance. So they discovered oil there back in the 1800s. So they set up in 1889, the first oil refinery was built in Digboy. And that's the time they said Digboy boy, because they were digging and getting oil, and suddenly this whole company got set up called Oil India.
Oh, interesting.
And that's when the whole township called Duliajan was set up. I grew up there. My father used to work for an oil company. typical middle class upbringing, watching Ramayana, the 1980s and
Doordarshan.
90s, and
Yeah, the
Doordarshan,
episodes.
only one channel,
Yeah.
going to school every day and coming back and going to the club. We had a very privileged upbringing relative to what rest of India at that time, because in an oil township, we had a fantastic club with a tennis courts and with badminton courts and table tennis courts. Back in the 1980s, it was a huge luxury.
Yeah.
So I grew up there, went to the regular school, which was a Kendriya Vidyalaya. There was only one school or two schools in the whole city. We grew up there, and then went to IIT. I was very fascinated with the idea of math. I learned math and I was pretty good at it.
What is pretty good?
Meaning, if you got 98 on a math test, my dad would be mad that, oh, how did you fail this test?
No.
Right? That was the sort of standards at home.
Yeah.
And I think I got a 0 on a math test in 6th grade, which was kind of devastating to me. And then in 7th grade onward,
How did it happen? How did you get that 0?
I moved schools.
Okay,
we were in Bhubaneswar in Orissa, and we moved back to Duliajan after a stint in Duliajan when I was very little. So that time during the transition, I did not learn some of the concepts, and it was about fractions or something, and I did a poor job.
Yeah, just fell through.
Yeah. And then I realized that I'm not really good at math, and I had to work hard at it. But a couple of years later, with the right teachers, especially a teacher called Ram Lalit Singh, who was amazing, a Bihari teacher, still lives in Darbhanga. I contacted him just a year ago and we spent an hour talking to each other. But he had an amazing influence in my life. He picked my math talent and started giving me really hard problems to solve. And I got really excited.
Yeah. Were you one of those who had IIT as the big goal, right? Like that IIT is a non-negotiable. Have to go there. There's no other option. Were you one of that category, or
Not
did
at
it
all.
happen? No.
Not at all. Okay. I didn't even know about IITs. You growing up in northeast of northeast in Assam, really there was not that much exposure to the IITs. I was really good at math. I just wanted to do well by math. At some point of time, I figured out that there is something called as an IIT JEE exam, which is considered to be a very tough exam. So that really challenged me. And in 10th grade, I also got this thing called the NTSC scholarship, which is a nationwide search for talent. There were 750 people across the country they would pick. And from the state of Assam, there were 4 of us. I was one of those 4. So I was very happy with myself, and the school started treating me very well. And I thought maybe I have some talent to go and study at the IITs. So that is really how it happened. But it was not as if I, knew that I had to go to an IIT all along.
Correct. Yeah.
Let me walk you out and show you the rest of the office.
Okay. Oh, it's connected everywhere, is it?
So we are here on the 7th floor of this office.
Yeah.
And we have 4 floors in this building, and each floor stands for a certain fractal value. So you can see these 0 1s here on this pillar, and 0 1s on that pillar, which essentially codes the value called client first. Okay. So, and the idea of not writing it explicitly is because we have already imbibed that value.
Yeah.
So we don't have to explicitly state it.
Got it.
But this is about client first. One thing we've done is that on every floor of the Fractal office, there's a library, and books are always available, because we want a culture where everybody's learning all the time. We're an industry where the half-life of knowledge is 3 years or further lower.
Correct.
And in such an industry, we want people not just with skills, but with an attitude to learning.
Yeah.
And we've made sure that all of the basic amenities are available to everybody. So we serve breakfast, lunch, and evening snacks every day.
Nice.
We, have drops to their respective homes and things like that. So we've made it easier for people to focus on the core work and not get distracted by everything else that needs to be done.
So I have to ask you, right? This is you're talking so much about culture and what the thought is. Like the office is almost a personality, because there's books, there are subtle hints about what the value system is. Where do you pick this up from? Like, what was IIT Delhi a solid influence? Just walk me through the formative years.
I would say that a lot of stuff that I've read over the years has influenced me. Like you, I've read a little bit about you. You read a lot, and I have this habit of reading at least 100 books a year. There are years I've read many more than 100, maybe 150.
And is that still going on? Like you still read 100 books a year?
Yes, last year I did.
Last year you did.
This year so far I'm doing very poorly thanks to the IPO and so on.
Yeah.
But if I don't do 100, I would be very disappointed with myself.
Wow.
That's the idea, which means average of 2 books per week. I pick the best ideas and try to implement them. And one of the grounds where I can implement this is Fractal.
Of course, yeah.
So a lot of the good ideas, I have chats with the teams and see if I can implement those good ideas in the Fractal office as well. Certainly IIT Delhi helped, especially a course called Psychological Basis for Human Behavior. I did that course back in the early 90s and I fell in love with psychology. I always thought I was a math guy, but now if you ask me, do you like math more or psychology more? I'd be really torn between
math
these
and
two.
psychology. Yeah, and so much of it is influenced by how people think or people behave because you're anticipating that, right?
Yes.
And you're dealing with emotions when you're on the client front or the internal teams. There's so much that there is to understand about who you're speaking with. And I've also realized that over time that you need to understand the person, you need to understand the client, you need to understand internally what's happening within.
Absolutely.
What's the team strength right now?
We're roughly 5,500 people.
Wow. All in this building?
About 1,000 in this building and 4,500 around the world. We have about 15 different offices around the world, including 5 in India.
Yeah.
So 3 in Bangalore. We've got an office in Pune. We've got an office in Delhi and Chennai and so on.
Amazing. So we're going to chat all about it and we're going to a different floor. So we'll go there and then we'll have a little sit down where I'm excited to hear and go into detail about how this journey unfolded.
Sounds great.
So when you started off Fractal in 2000, like I said, right, AI is very cool now, but it wasn't back in the day. You also left a stable job to begin something when starting up really wasn't a thing. So was there backlash? Like were your parents like, just why are you leaving a job? Be safe, be responsible. And did people understand what you were doing?
I graduated in 96 from IIT Delhi and then MBA 98. My father passed away in the year 1998. So really, I did not have him to ask opinion of, etc. I often think what would have happened if he were alive and if I asked him, I'm going to do a startup, I don't know how he would have reacted. But I knew that back, even as I was growing up, there was a certain age after which my dad started to treat me like a friend and started to take my counsel. So I had this confidence that, okay, whatever I'm doing will be okay. It was a challenging time to be an entrepreneur because in 1998, we had this, Russia had defaulted on the loans, LTCM had crashed. BSE Sensex was at 2800 if I'm not mistaken. So it was a challenging time. But as we got closer to 2000, the dot-com boom had suddenly exploded and I saw a bunch of entrepreneurs around me. And that's when I felt like maybe entrepreneurship is a risk I can take. When growing up, I always thought entrepreneurship is for people who already have money and therefore I would work for multinational corporations and just build a stable career. And I started with ANZ Investment Bank and then ICICI. But in 1999, the environment was such that I felt it was appropriate for me to, quit and start. And it has worked out. So I'm actually feeling pretty good about it, having taken that courageous step at that time, and so on.
For people who are at a crossroad, should I give up my stable job and start up, or should I start up and take that risk? What advice would you give them?
I always think of this from the vantage point of what will you regret more. See, Jeff Bezos was, I think, in mid-20s when he decided to quit his very high-paying job at D.E. Shaw, which is one of the best hedge funds in New York. So his CEO decided to, try to retain him. So he said, let's go for a walk. And they went out for a walk and he tried to convince him that he had a very stable, high-paying career and doing this dot-com thing, starting a bookshop on the internet, is probably not such a great idea. So Jeff said, look, I fully agree with you. I have a phenomenal career ahead of me. But I will always regret much later that when this whole internet thing was exploding, instead of trying something, I didn't do anything. So he said, I want to minimize my regret and therefore I'm going to quit anyway. So similarly, when you're thinking of a very big decision, I always ask people, what will you regret more? Trying something new or not having tried it? And you must minimize your regret when you're faced with consequential decisions.
Yeah. Another big decision that comes up and one that I've often pondered in my career is co-founders. So I've been a solo founder and I think that is the number one mistake I've made in my career, for sure. And I'm confident looking back that had I not gone the solo founder route, there would have been a delta. You started up with 5 co-founders. That's a lot of people, a lot of decision makers. How does one pick their co-founder, and how has your experience been when it came to starting up with 5 co-accountability partners? Let's just put it like that.
One of the biggest mistakes I have made, for sure, because at that time you're somewhat scared because you're starting something new and you don't know if it'll succeed. So there is some comfort in having more people buy into the decision. So first one to think of starting was me, and I brainstormed with a colleague called Nirmal, and both of us decided that, okay, we'll start something. The first thing I did after that was to go and talk to Pranay, my co-founder now, and ask him if he would join us. He said yes. That gave me a lot of confidence that if he's also willing to start something with me, maybe we'll have a higher chance of success. Nirmal did the same, and we got the 4th one, and then there's a 5th one, there's a 6th one. Eventually 6 of us started Fractal in the year 2000. So it was a huge mistake in the sense that any decision would slow down. We are all 6 equals, we are all classmates, 5 of us from IIM Ahmedabad, 1 from IIM Calcutta, same batch, so we are peers. So very soon we got into the situation where every decision was something that we had to come together, spend hours and hours deliberating. So we would never make a mistake because somebody would stop it from happening, but we would never take any risk because, again, somebody would stop you from taking a risk. So we had that problem.
It would hamper agility also, I'm assuming, yeah, because you can't move really quickly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when somebody comes to me and says, okay, I'm planning to start a business, I always advise them to work with a 2-people team, 2 co-founders, one the CEO type and one the CTO type. Okay. Every business is a tech business nowadays. So you need someone who really gets the tech, whatever is the deepest tech in the sector that you're operating. Someone who can look internally, build the product, etc. And the CEO who can do fundraising, who can sell, who can deal with people. So you have these 2 types of people. When they come together, they're complementary.
Yeah.
And together, they're able to create a team that is complete in all respects.
Also, the skill sets they don't overlap. Like when you're looking from a CEO front on being the face of the company or communicating on behalf of the company, raising funds, and the tech, which is just an entirely different beast. So probably wouldn't overlap.
Yes.
What amount did you guys start up with?
So we all brought in 2 lakhs each.
Okay.
I went to my mom and borrowed 2 lakhs from her. I didn't have any savings. I was already on a student loan and I was repaying that student loan. And this was a pretty big deal just to pay the loan every month after not having any salary, because once you start, we didn't have any salaries for the first 6 to 12 months. So that was challenging, but I brought 2 lakhs. Others also were supposed to get in 2 lakhs. Some of them managed to get 2 lakhs. Some of them brought in maybe a little less than 2 lakhs. But we were all had equal stakes and all put together something like 10 lakhs of capital to start the business.
Wow. And what is it worth today?
Roughly, I think 15,000 crores, 16,000 crores, yeah.
That's insane. But obviously this came with blips along the way. A few of your co-founders also left, which obviously has to be challenging when you navigate a management shift or you navigate a fundamental change in hierarchy in the company. How did you navigate it and what did you learn?
Initially, we were a team of 6, and for all the board decks and things, investor fundraising decks, I was deemed as a CEO, though I never operated like a CEO because we were all 6 equals. After that, at the end of first year, 1 founder left because he didn't even like the whole analytics AI business that we had started, so he quickly left. The 5 of us remained, and we built the business for the next 6 years. But in the 6th year of building that business, one of our early angel investors, he said, look, you're 6 equal people or 5 equal people now, and we want one person that we can talk to every day to tell us what's happening with the business and so on. Can you please elect a leader? So this was a kind of a weird thing to elect a leader.
Yeah.
So back then, I already was in the US along with Pranay. So we were both living in New York, New Jersey, and 2 founders were living out of Singapore. And 1 founder was in Mumbai. So the 5 of us had to meet somewhere. And this was early 2005, 2006. So we used to, it was pre-Skype days, I remember. So we used to have these long conference calls, expensive conference calls on the telephone with speakerphone on, etc. Pranay and I would get together and do that. So this was getting to be pretty expensive to just run the business. We were in different places, and like they say, where you stand is a function of where you sit. Sometimes what you see in your environment shapes your thinking. So somebody sitting in Singapore seeing the world very differently from someone sitting in Mumbai or New York. So we all decided that we'll meet up in London to elect the next CEO.
A neutral location.
Neutral location.
Yeah.
So Pranay and I took that flight, a continental flight from New York to London, and RK took it from Mumbai, and 2 others took it from Singapore. We all met up. We had a full election situation where we had to nominate ourselves. So I nominated myself after realizing that 3 others were not interested in being the CEO. So RK said, I don't want to take the CEO job, it's too big for me. And then Nirmal and Pradeep also sort of backed out. So there were 2 left, so Pranay and me. So we both nominated ourselves, and then the other 3
had to vote.
You had to vote.
Yeah.
And they went through the whole process. They spent half a day, 3-4 hours chatting about it without us too. And they came and said, we've unanimously selected Srikanth as a CEO. That was an interesting, important day. And we all went to watch Chicago, the musical, right after that. It was great. We finished up the weekend. We went back to our respective locations.
At this point, what was the company worth? Like how much?
Company was probably roughly 3 million in revenue.
3 million
revenue, and about say 10 or 11 million in valuation terms, because we were getting acquisition offers.
Got it. Okay.
So that was the situation. So as soon as this happened, I started to behave differently. I'm the CEO. Now I have to marshal these people and get things done and so on. So I had some extra energy to run this company as CEO. And the others were sort of a little skeptical of me. Okay, we elected him the CEO, but let us see how he performs. So after 6 months, 3 of those, of the 3 that elected me, 2 of them came and said, we don't want you as a CEO anymore. It was a big mistake. We should go back to our collegial partners way of working together.
Which is all 5 are decision makers.
All 5 are decision makers. We'll run our own respective geographies and so on. More like a consulting firm, partnership firm and so on. It was too late already. So I said, no, this doesn't make sense. Let's find an alternative. And then they said, okay, why don't we separate and split the business into 2? I was completely against that idea. But eventually we couldn't come up with anything else. Finally, 2 founders left. They took a bunch of people with them, and it was absolutely chaotic. One of the worst few years of my life, easily. And to top that, the world financial, global financial crisis was happening at that time.
2008.
So markets were in a bad place. And so from 2007 to 2010 was 3 terrible years in my life. And only when I sort of in some ways grew to understand the situation better, and I could see the problem from a higher level of consciousness, like they say, no problem can be solved at the level of consciousness it was created in. So it took a couple of years for me to grow up and then say that, look, let me acknowledge my part in this. Let me go and apologize to all the people and make peace. That's when we were able to buy out their shareholding, and then Fractal was set up to succeed in 2010. So 3 years lost, but good news is that from there onwards, we started growing really nicely. We were just 4.5 million in revenue in 2010, and from there we are 100 times the size in the next 15 years.
Okay, so 3 questions. The first one is, when this kind of not hostile but aggressive shift happens, investors lose faith. How was that navigation for you? Especially because now you're in a CEO position, you're answerable, you're the be it and end it of all the answers.
Investors, absolutely, but even people, your own team. Everyone starts to mistrust.
Scatter,
Yeah, because you've just seen a catastrophic explosion happen, right? There was a day I was in Bangalore when all the spate of resignation started coming in. I was in a meeting with another guy who had just sold a company. I was trying to get some advice from him on how to raise capital in Fractal. And suddenly I see him on my BlackBerry, like 2 resignations on my BlackBerry. And I said, Ganesh, something is going on. And then a few minutes later, there were like 3 more resignations. And suddenly I realized that something was shifting beneath my feet. I told Ganesh, I'm very sorry, I have to head back to Mumbai. I came back to Mumbai, there were 13 resignations by the time I returned. And a quarter of Fractal had just quit Fractal on that day because they had lost faith. They were going with the other
You pick depending upon where you want to land.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then others, the 60 other people who were in Fractal also started to lose faith in Fractal. So resurrecting that faith, telling them that our future is bright, great things are going to happen, we are in a great space, we have great clients, etc.
Did you believe it?
I believed it. I believed it.
At that point also?
I believed it, but I also knew that it was not going to be easy. It was
uphill.
Extraordinarily challenging.
Yeah.
Bringing that team together was hard. Then going to clients and saying that, look, Fractal is not going anywhere, we will survive this and we'll thrive, and keeping those clients very hard. And investors, certainly that was hard too. So it was 3 years of hell.
Yeah.
And this was not just this, right? Even your family members, everyone is telling you that, oh, this has been a catastrophic mistake on your part, and you've just wasted 7 or 8 years of your life, you're back to zero, and you have to build this all over again. Do you really want to do it? So keeping faith while such a thing was happening was very hard. But thanks to my wife, who was very supportive through this entire period, she was helping with all the various legal things we had to handle. So we managed this. We managed this crisis and we went forward.
And the second question is, you've spoken about ego, and you said that certain decisions were driven by ego.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that now? And how can one identify that? Because for people watching, you can figure it out looking backwards, but in the moment, if you kind of pick up on it, it can save you years of heartbreak or years of regret, right?
Yeah.
So how did you and how does one deal with ego?
In general, entrepreneurship is an exercise in ego destruction. I'm sure you will relate with that, because you realize right after you set out to do something, you have to convince the whole world that what you're doing is not a waste of time.
Yeah.
And that is worth doing. Whether you have to convince people to join you, investors, clients, everyone is telling you that this is not worth it, because you are essentially climbing uphill.
Yeah.
It's always that hill climbing that is involved in any entrepreneurship. So in that process, unless you cut your ego to size, it's very difficult to succeed.
Yeah.
I did not realize that for the first 6-7 years, but after the founders quit, I realized that here's my part in this game, which is these guys elected me as a CEO. They gave me this mandate. Obviously, they had the right intent in place. So what happened in 6 months that they lost faith in me? So what did I do wrong?
Yeah.
And I realized that maybe my aggressive way of how I was trying to manage this business, or I was dealing with them, maybe I didn't respect them enough. I realized that my ego was an important part of that. So it is like a 0-1 thing. The moment you realize that, it goes away. So I went and apologized to them, and I think I sort of built a fractal culture which is built on humility after that. But it started with a lot of ego. Even then, like in the next 15-20 years also, I've realized that every so often I realize that this ego is again getting out of hand, and I have to cut it back to size in order to succeed.
Yeah.
It's purely commercial, right? Even if to succeed, you have to cut your ego to size.
It's just ego management.
Yes.
Yeah, where it doesn't let it get the better of you.
Yes. Success is the biggest problem, right? When you succeed, suddenly you start feeling that everything you've done so far has been right.
Yeah.
And therefore, I'm always right. That's the mindset that you get into.
Yeah.
To realize that, no, you've been successful in spite of some of the terrible decisions you've made, in spite of all your weaknesses, because of a few strengths and because of the people around you, you have succeeded. Then that keeps you in check. That you're not the be all and end all of everything. You don't always have the right answer, and so on.
So you're spiritual.
I read philosophy. When I was going through a very difficult time during my undergrad days, I had started reading Vivekananda. So I read the whole, complete works of Vivekananda, some, 8 books, 8 volumes. I read most of it. So I was quite inspired by that, and it really impacted me quite deeply. I felt that I found the answer to life and everything at that time. So since then, I've been interested in critical thinking and philosophy. I did some courses on philosophy, Western philosophy, Eastern philosophy, and so on. But not very religious in some ways.
Yeah, spirituality versus religion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I do Vipassana, which is a Buddhist meditation,
Yeah.
10, 11 days, silence and so on. That has been very, very good very good influence on my life.
Amazing things happen in silence. Your top 3 recommendations for books for entrepreneurs watching, or future budding entrepreneurs, or just somebody who wants to figure out what they want to do in life or which way to go?
One book that I have found to be most influential in my life is coincidentally a book called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion.
Yeah.
So Robert Cialdini's groundbreaking book, written in 1984, he rewrote that book almost entirely in 2021. Beautiful book. Everyone should read it because it fundamentally teaches you how human beings behave, what are the various principles of influence, how to learn that. While it is not directly related to entrepreneurship, but entrepreneurship is eventually about making people do things and creating something in the world.
Yeah.
So that involves influencing people for sure. So that I would say is probably the most important book. The second one that I have always found to be very inspiring, even though it's a very dark tale, is a book called Man's Search for Meaning.
It's very dark.
Very dark and yet very uplifting. It's one of those strange books. It's talking about a concentration camp and incredible human suffering.
Yeah.
But it is about how do you make sense of suffering and find meaning in your suffering.
During the Holocaust.
During the Holocaust. And that book I find to be, it's very tiny but extremely influential. And entrepreneurship, while it's not as bad as that, but it is about finding meaning through the entire journey.
Yeah.
1 in 2 entrepreneurs during their entrepreneurship goes through a phase of depression. This is the studies, right? So how do you come out of those situations when the world seems like it's not working exactly according to your plan? How do you conquer that? A book like this helps you, uncover meaning and helps you recommit to the journey that you have.
So when you recently rang the bell and went IPO, how did you manage your ego, firstly? Because that's a feat that most entrepreneurs would dream of, like one of those moments, because there's some kind of a conclusion, right? You've put in 21 years, I think, before you got there and reached unicorn status. So how did you deal with your ego or manage your ego? And the second is, did that push you further to deliver, or was there a sense of, okay, now, it's come to a good point?
The good thing about markets is that they keep you really honest and they really cut your ego to size. So entrepreneurship is an exercise in ego destruction, but being a listed company, I think you have to keep your ego in check because you have a whole new set of shareholders, stakeholders, who you have to learn how to understand the world from their vantage point.
Yeah.
When I think of Fractal, I used to always think of, okay, we are in a great, exciting business called AI, we're powering decisions, we're working with some of the best companies in the world, we're strategic partners to them, we build a high growth business with high gross margins, and then next, or after all of that, I would think about the net income or profit after taxes. That was literally the last thing I would think of when thinking of Fractal. But from a shareholder's point of view, who's invested, let's say think of someone who's just saved 10,000 rupees and decided to put that in Fractal stock. They are looking at the net income first. 100%. They're thinking net income upwards rather than AI downwards, right? So when you think of a P&L from net income, it has to change the way you run your business. That has been the most important learning from me after the IPO, is to think of this company from the vantage point of how shareholders look at it. They don't see the full picture of what I am able to see, but they see the business from the lens of the financials.
It's outcome based.
Yes. So getting the financials into a place where they like the business is important, while continuing to build the AI business that we are building. So that's been interesting. So the IPO was a very important moment, but having built this company for 25 years, it did not feel like, oh, this is the end of a journey. It felt like, okay, start of chapter 2. That's what it felt like. Chapter 1 is the entrepreneurship phase. Chapter 2 is building a company for the next 100 years phase. And how do you build that in a public company context is how I've been thinking about it. It's incredibly motivating to know that you have a path to building this company for the next 100 years. You have permanent capital, you have the world looking at you. So I feel really good about the attention Fractal is getting in the world of AI as a listed company, and the opportunity that we have to build it for the next 50 years.
This is amazingly late into the conversation, but better late than never. For those watching, please tell us in the simplest terms what Fractal does, who are your biggest clients, and what you're truly solving, and then we'll get to the future.
Think of any problem in the world, any decision in the world. Let's say this morning you woke up and you wanted to get to your office and you wanted to see which is the fastest way to get to office. You made a bunch of decisions from the time you got up to getting to the office. Now, could you have used AI? Could you have used data? Could you have used some patterns to improve the quality, speed, and execution of your decisions? For example, you did not think twice before using Google Maps to figure out the direction.
Yeah.
How is Google Maps able to do that? It's able to do that because it's looked at all kinds of traffic data over years and years, and it knows that on this Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. from your home to your office, this is the best route, given what has happened in the last few minutes in terms of traffic buildup and so on. So what if we could make every decision in an optimal way that way? Companies are spending billions and billions of dollars. What to produce, where to manufacture it, where to ship it, what shipping option to use, how to price it, what promotions to run. How do I understand customers better? How do I sell to them better? How do I advertise and spend my marketing dollars? Think of all the decisions companies make every day. Millions of decisions. Now, these decisions can be informed by looking at all the patterns that are happening in the data. So, because you have all these systems that capture the data, you know what's going on. So, with that predictions, you can make a much more optimal decision, which can help you grow faster, make you more profitable, help you invent better products faster. So, how do you do all of that using AI? Fractal helps the biggest companies in the world. I'll give you a simple thought experiment. Think of your YouTube app, right? I'm sure you use your YouTube app every day. So let's go to an incognito mode on YouTube, right? There's if you click on the top right on your picture and say go incognito, it will forget that it is Karishma.
Yeah.
It will start to throw up all kinds of videos at you. You can search anything, you can get everything. But your experience of using YouTube will be really poor.
Bad. Yeah.
Because all the videos, they're irrelevant for you. But YouTube is doing the hard job of looking at billions of videos, looking at your preferences, looking at the latest content that's come up, and making sure that the top 5 things on your app are precisely relevant for you. It's solving this very hard problem.
And what are some of the companies that you work with?
The biggest companies in the world. So if you think of what is called as the Mag 7, the Magnificent 7 companies, these are the biggest tech companies in the world. We serve 5 of the 7 of them.
Wow.
So all the big tech companies. Then consumer goods company, literally every major consumer goods company on the planet, whether you're producing laundry detergent or you're producing diapers, these are all our clients. Right? So we work with almost all of them. Then we work with some of the biggest healthcare companies and health insurance companies and pharma companies, and then banks and insurance companies. All of them are very big. They all satisfy a definition we call as 10, 20, 30, which essentially means they should be at least 10 billion in revenue, which is 80,000 Indian crore rupees in revenue. That's already classifies them to a very large companies.
Yeah. That's your ICP.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. And what is 10, 20, 30?
The 20 stands for 20 billion in market cap.
Okay.
And 30 stands for 30 million end customers being served by that company. Wow. That creates all the scaled companies in the world. These are literally the most important companies on the planet. And we serve about 150 of them.
Wow. And that's it. The revenue that you're currently sitting on is from 150 clients.
That's it.
So obviously, I have to ask the very obvious question. Now that everything is data and how you analyze data to make better decisions, etc., what is the future of AI? And you were the pioneer, right? Like you were in it in AI before AI became cool. So what do you foresee and where are we headed?
See, from the vantage point of most of us, it feels like AI was born in 2022 with ChatGPT launch. But AI has been around for at least 75 years. 1950 was the first time a guy called Alan Turing, a British mathematician, he helped the British forces crack the German code. Enigma. He built a machine called Bomb, B-O-M-B-E, which could crack the code, and that helped the Allied forces win the World War II. Very important guy. But in 1950, he wrote a paper, he called it the imitation game. He said that what if a machine can imitate like a human? He said, imagine you are talking to 2 individuals in 2 different rooms. You are in a third room. Now, you're having a conversation with them, you don't know if they're a human or a machine. One of them is a human, one of them is a machine. If you can always make out which one is the human and which is the machine, then the machine is not smart enough.
Yeah, and it's not doing a good job.
Yes. But if the machine is doing a good job, you won't be able to find out. And that's when the machine has passed the Turing test. So that was his early definition of AI. Now you can see that with all the ChatGPTs, it's pretty difficult to distinguish between a human conversation and a machine conversation. Yeah. Not easy. Definitely not very easy. Anyway, that was the early days of AI. From there, for the next 50, 60 years, there was a lot of debate about what kind of AI will be successful. That was sorted out by 2010, that neural networks, or now called deep learning, will be successful. And from there onwards, from 2010 to 2020, we saw the rise of computer vision apps and language apps and Google Translate and Google Maps, YouTube. All of these became very AI infused. And 2022, we had ChatGPT. So the last 3 years, ChatGPT has become much, much better. So AI models are mimicking human behavior much more nicely. But what they have also picked up is how to think more deeply, get into sort of, let's say, do mathematics, give you better domain expertise. So they've become capable of reasoning, not just spitting out answers. Earlier it was all about AI spitting out answers and making mistakes. Now they become more sophisticated.
Especially with history.
Yes.
So it's reasoning for me. Like, for example, if I asked it, so I don't know, this is your interview, I'm just saying, which restaurant do I go to? It's given me 5 options and then said, but you don't go to these 2 because you're vegetarian. So it's reasoning for me and saying that probably the other 3 are better because you'll find more options there, which was amazing. And I was like, wow, it's like used my historical context to give me a very customized solution.
Absolutely, absolutely. And nowadays you can actually bring in, let's say, a couple of history books and throw it into Notebook LM and ask it to debate.
Yeah.
It'll create 2 AI voices that are debating opposite sides of an issue.
Yeah.
So it's extraordinarily good in terms of reasoning and thinking and sort of planning and giving you even mathematically more accurate answers.
Yeah.
And nowadays, in the last 1.5, 2 years, what's happened is that we also have what is called as agentic AI, which means that these AIs are becoming good enough to be your co-workers, take a complex problem, divide into more smaller problems, reason and plan around it, execute it, learn from the feedback and get better over time. Almost like any fellow human being would do, so they can do parts of a job with you. So as we think forward, AI will get even more sophisticated. I think it's only a matter of, let's say, another year or 2 that you will see full-fledged AI agents almost like co-workers, maybe even joining a Zoom call and answering all the questions. Even today, for example, AI does a much better job of note-taking in a meeting and summarizing a meeting than any human being can do.
I'm obsessed with granola. So I just keep it on and it summarizes the important parts of the meeting and it's like my meeting notes and I have to just like forward it.
But what if you have a meeting participant? Let's say you're working with a remote worker and he or she is part of your team. You don't know if it's a human or a machine. Like, she is as equally present, joining all meetings and taking all the notes and doing all the actions and working with you. Let's say she's your chief HR officer. She's doing with all the work that she has to do, like, talking to people and making sure that their salary payments are done, or also maybe giving them career coaching and so on. But she's actually not a human being. She's an agent. So you will have agents co-working with us in the very near future, in the next 2 to 3 years. And beyond that, we have this notion called AGI, or artificial general intelligence. A point in time where you can safely, confidently say that on every given topic, AI will be better than humans. And by the way, it's also learning faster than humans. So you'll get into that moment where AI will surpass human beings in all ways. And that's the part which could be scary, because what are the chances that it will go out of control and start controlling us instead? So that's the future we are looking at. Of course, there are various kinds of AI safety plans in place, and many companies are working through that to make these AIs have human values or prioritize human welfare first and so on. But we never know what happens when machine becomes better than human.
Yeah, that's amazing. I was just thinking of like 10 different things. I was at a conference I was attending a conference held by Sam Altman and Cisco. And he said all the agents will have their own social media network at some point, where they're just communicating with each other. They also know each other's hobbies or what they're good at or proficient at and who their owners are. And I thought that was incredibly fascinating. But everything that you're saying, right, is something that's heavily debated. And people are always talking about the dark side of AI and where it could head. And there's like a very, very scary outcome, like you're saying. But are you bullish on India specifically when it comes to AI growth and AI growth in the safe way, so to speak?
See, look at what we have accomplished in the last 2,000 years as a human civilization, the last 300 years post-industrial revolution. In many ways, we can afford a lot of things that even Queen Victoria could not have afforded, right? Let's say a clean toilet and indoor plumbing was not there in Queen Victoria time, even though she was so rich. So in some ways, human beings are flourishing because of all the technological progress that we've made in the last 300 to 400 years. So AI is the next huge leap in that technological progress. So we could be in that post-scarcity world where everyone should not have to worry about food, should not have to worry about healthcare, should not have to worry about where to live or having sufficient means to go about their lives. I feel that AI will usher in that revolution in the next 5 to 10 years. And that is a profoundly optimistic view of the world. Yes, there is a chance that world will go awry because AI starts to take control. But well before that, we'll have AI that will be extraordinarily useful, cut the cost down of healthcare, bring the cost down of education, so that everyone can go and pursue the right kind of hobbies and invent the future. Today, we are all caught up in doing the day-to-day mundane stuff. Like people, people. I see people cleaning the windows of high rises and the kind of dangerous jobs that they do. People that go into mining and other unsafe industries. There's so many people working every day in very menial jobs. What if we could allow them to imagine what's next for the world? And every time technology has made something obsolete, human beings have been able to imagine what next. So I have a lot of faith, not just in AI, but in humankind, that we will be able to imagine what is next in the age of AI.
Wow. That's an amazing way to end the episode. Thank you so much for your time, Srikanth, and it was lovely chatting with you. And I learned a lot, so I hope this episode gives people some food for thought on a variety of different topics, but especially on your journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Karishma. Great to be here.